Welcome, everybody. This is the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, and every week we bring you people from around the world who are making their communities locally, globally, and digitally all the better. The idea is that that's kind of a good way to live your life, to choose service above self as an operating principle for how you do your work, how you go through your day, how you hang out with your friends, all of these things. All of these things actually apply in this case because we got a whole bunch of friends with us to talk to our speaker, Gwen Jones. And Gwen is a Rotarian. Matter of fact, she will tell you she's a proud Rotarian. That's actually part of the work she does as a part of Rotary, and we're going to hear a lot about that. And I am really excited for her to be a storyteller, not just for Rotary in general, but for us today. Rotary, by the way, real quick, Rotary, 1.4 million Rotarians and Rotaractors around the world and 36,000 plus clubs, making the world a better place. And if you are new to Rotary, if you're thinking, what is this Rotary thing? By all means, reach out to us. You can find us at our club at rotary.cool, which is cool. You can also get to Rotary at rotary.org. And we're happy to help you find somebody in your community who's helping do those kinds of things that Rotarians like to do. So with that, I would like to hand the microphone over to the long, long way from boring, Gwen Jones.
Well, first of all, it's nice to know that if I ever get sick or I lose my voice, that you're in, dude. You can be the replacement I'm a Rotarian podcast voice any day.
I am honored.
So as you guys all know, my name is Gwen Jones, but I am the producer, founder, creator, editor, and basically work too many hours, but it's a great job, producer of the I'm A Rotarian podcast, which, as the saying goes, you can get wherever you get your podcasts. It's on Stitcher and iTunes and all that kind of stuff. But why would I do a podcast? Because I just said that I am the producer and the editor and the booker. And by the way, I have a real job. My real job is I'm a live concert and production producer. So I'm the person in the headset that's running around behind the stage. As you guys all know, the folks there from California, you see us a lot. But but I was one of those people that got everybody to their mark on time. I've worked at such places as TED and the Lincoln Center and several festivals around the world. Well, I don't know if y'all heard this thing called COVID, but if you're a live performance producer, COVID ceases and desists any of your employment almost immediately. Large concerts, large venue things, as everybody knows on this screen, just stopped, which left me with a lot of free time. I was an early adapter to podcasts. Right now, I feel like everybody has a podcast, and it's kind of true, and they're popping out every single week. I was a really early adapter to podcasts. Before that, I was in radio and even dabbled in front of the camera for a while. So I had all the equipment that I could do a podcast. But before I wanted to do one, I wanted to listen to one. And so I immediately went to rotary.org. I am a proud Rotarian. I've been a proud Rotarian for over 10 years now. I was the charter member of the Rotary Club of Whidbey Westside, which is here on Whidbey Island in Washington State. So I figured I would go to rotary.org and there would be a plethora of podcasts and stories about the 1.4 million Rotarians all over the world. And guess what? Nothing. Zippo, not one. I was really disappointed. So I decided to fix it, but I wanted to do it my way. So you'll notice that the name of the show is called I'm a Rotarian, not Rotary. Rotary, that particular word Rotary, is trademarked, okay? But the word Rotarian describes somebody. It is a pronoun. And we can have a whole other discussion about pronouns, but that's not the point. The point is using the word Rotarian meant that I could do it my way, not under the Rotary umbrella. So the rebel in me came out and I said, not only do I want to do a podcast, but I would like to do a weekly podcast about the everyday people that proudly call themselves Rotarians. So I have had great dignitaries on the show. I've had past presidents, current president Jennifer Jones is a huge sorry, Corgi's in the background, live TV here, or podcasting. There is, I have a great fan base of people that have been a part of Rotary in the higher echelons, let's say. Jennifer Jones has been on, like I said, twice. Gordon's about to come on. You know, we've had Hogarth, Shaker. I never got Shaker though. Maybe this will get to Shaker. He hasn't been on. And a lot of what it quote unquote would be Rotary celebrities. But where I really have a lot of fun is when I talk to people like you, or I talk to people like, oh my gosh, is that Christopher Knight, who's actually been on the show with me? When I talk to everyday people that proudly call themselves Rotarians, we have, like we said, 1.4 million people that are Rotarians. And every single day they are doing something to make the world a better place. So I self-admit I am a Facebook stalker, which is how I know some of the faces on this screen. I just basically stalk them and say, hi, here's who I am. And I want to know your story. And I have had the honor to talk to outside of Iceland, every single continent in the world. I've gotten up in the middle of the night or gotten up very early in the morning to talk to Sub-Saharan Africa or Australia or Germany, or in 1 week, I went literally from Norway to Germany to Mozambique to South Africa, and then went over to Melbourne all in the same week. It was fantastic because Rotarians, we think sometimes very locally, but we are a worldwide organization. And I am now in my 7th season. I have talked to people digging wells. I have talked to people washing people's hands. I've talked to people that literally are helping adults with club feet. That's in Kenya. I have talked to people that are making sure that folks who have lost their right hand in India get it replaced because of the cultural indignity of not having a right hand in some place like India. The left hand, for those who don't know, is considered dirty in that area. So if you only have a left hand because of an accident to your right hand, you are considered, for no other words, almost subhuman. You cannot be an active member of society. So there's a Rotary group that's right there in Bombay that is working on prosthetic hands, especially for the right hand. And they're working with Operation Hand Wash. So you have an entire, they did 1,500 people in 2 days. That's 750 people that they put prosthetic hands on, taught them how to use them. And at the end, there was a work program to get them to work. And I got to talk to them. That's what I do on my podcast. I talked to Christopher, who's on your screen right now. Not only did I talk to him about chess, which is pretty cool, which actually made me go dig out my old dusty chessboard. But Christopher and I just this last week, along with a gentleman named Mark Shockley, talked about God. And of course, your president on your screen. We talked about God and Rotary. And the question that I asked all 3 of those men is that, oh, you're the past president, Russian, my bad. The interesting question in Rotary is that we are supposed to embrace everyone's vocation, correct? My vocation was working in the public sphere, performing arts. We have all different types of vocations on the screen with me, but what if your vocation is God, which is Christopher, who's on your screen right there, who, you know, so how do we support them in a non-denominational organization? And can God be a part of Rotary in a non-secular way? was a really fascinating podcast. And it's caused me to get some great emails. So far, all positive, Christopher, just to let you know. But I tell people all the time when I'm recording the podcast, if you have any hate mail, it's rotarianpod@gmail.com. I was the typical white woman when I talked to Nadine Pemberton at the DEI task force and asked her if I could be a racist and a Rotarian. Okay, I've talked to Brian Rush, who is the past president of the DEI task force, and said, how come I have to use pronouns? Or are we as Rotary becoming too woke? Okay, so, and is DEI just the color of your skin or who you sleep with? What is actually DEI? We haven't done a lot of DEI on people, let's say, with physical disabilities, hearing, somebody in a wheelchair. I propose to everybody on the screen here, when you walk down the street and you see somebody in a wheelchair, do you think, oh, it's a person with special needs? Or do by chance you say, hey, they could be a great Rotarian? And if you don't think that, maybe spend a little time. What is DEI? So I've gone out there on a limb. I've been willing to ask the questions because it isn't under the Rotary umbrella. And it's turned out that I've gotten fans all over the world and thousands of downloads of people that want to hear about other Rotarians and were willing to ask the questions, which is me. And that's why I was brought here today. So if you have questions for me, then I get to be on this side of the seat, which is not my usual place, but I'm eager and I'm happy to engage you, because it is conversations like this that is going to make us 2.5 million, 2.6 million, 2.7 million Rotarians. So I'm eager if anybody has any comments or questions for me.
All right, Gwen, fantastic stuff, as I knew it would be. So everybody, as you were thinking about your questions, remember that you can put the questions fully in the chat and I'll read them for you, or you can just say, I have a question, and I'll ask you to unmute and ask it. We ask that we keep questions fairly brief so that we can kind of focus on what it is that Gwen has to say, of course. And please remain muted until we bring you on. But I also want to introduce the group that we have on the call. So when I call your name, please wave. If you are unable to wave, or you have your that'd be your camera off, then all good. But just going across the group, we've got Rory in Houston, a member of our club. We've got president of the Rotary Club. I'm going to butcher the name. I apologize. Yamoussoukro. In Côte d'Ivoire. This is Beatrice. Thank you for being with us. Very, very cool to have you, President Beatrice. We have with us Lisa Axelrod here in the Bay Area. She is a longtime member of District 5170 and currently a prospective member of our club, because we think she's cool and she thinks we're cool, and that's how that works. In Italy, we have Cecilia, our treasurer. Great to have you here, and even at the advancing hour, although I guess it's not that late.
It's not that bad.
No. We have got
2 a.m. is an advancing hour.
Which it is not at the moment. All right. So
right, correct.
We have another member of the team, already mentioned, awesome Deacon Christopher Major, evangelist of chess and all-around good guy. Great to have you with us as well. And do not turn on your camera. Driving at the moment is friend of the club and actually one of the charter members, Chris Cochran, who is part of the District 7040 Passport Club in Greater Toronto. So with this group, what we want to do is we want to jump in and start, kind of working with questions, simple and profound, and kind of get into these pieces as we go as well. First of all, in that we look at podcasts and recordings like these programs that we do for our club as the opportunity to share stories that inspire. One of the things that you said immediately, I think, caught the attention of several of us, which is the Bombay group you talked about. Literally gives men and women a hand. can you give us that info about like the name of that group so we can look them up, kind of learn more? What do you, or send it to us later if that's even better.
Sure, I'm not in front of my computer. I'm iPadding this morning, but Mohammed is, he was just last month on our series. And if you go, when you go look at later episodes, you can hear from him, himself and the story itself. But I have started collecting, and I had one person say I should put it in a book, but I've started collecting all of these different organizations because we hear about action groups and we hear about fellowships, but there's all these like little tiny ones that are in between that get lost, and his is one of them. So I can give you his information later. I'm happy to. One thing that, and I'll send it to Rushton, I can just send it to you. One thing that's really interesting about some of the projects that we do in Rotary that gets missed and that I try and touch on is Rotary being a worldwide organization, we have to deal with traditions and customs that are not where Rotary was founded. So the customs in Chicago are not the same as the customs in Malawi, Africa, which are not the same as the customs in Germany, which are not the same as. So when we go in there and we say, I want to dig a well, that's great. And a well is fantastic. But, you know, are we making sure that the customs and the needs of the people in general in that community are not what we want for that community, but what they want for their community? And so what was fascinating listening to Mohammed and the prosthetic hands was that they started it themselves because everybody was building bathrooms. In India. India had a huge public bathroom problem. And what it basically did was lower these people even more. Because then they had no excuse. They needed to go use a restroom. Now the restroom was public. So they'd walk in and people would see them. And they would see them only with a left hand. So culturally, it was taking a group of people, putting a spotlight on them as they walked in and a spotlight on them as they walked out because of a hand. So Rotarians saw that cultural need because that is where they live and started this program. So it's in, we did a group in Malawi, Africa wanted to start a girls because of their period. We've heard of Days for Girls. I don't know if people have heard of Days for Girls, but Days for Girls is an awesome organization and it makes hygiene kits for girls so girls can stay in school. Now follow me here, because my mind is like, okay, well, what's going on in Malawi? We have a group of girls that can't go to school. We also have a group of women who need work. We also have a group of textile people in that whole region that make some of the most beautiful fabrics in the world. So instead of saying, we as Americans, we're going to make these hygiene kits and we're going to send them off to Malawi and we're going to save the world. That's a good idea. But what if we went to the women and said, you have these beautiful textiles, you have the ideas of how you can make these kits, how can we buy you sewing machines? So then you make the hygiene kits for the girls that you know in your own town that will need them exactly. So we as Rotarians listen to not just what we want to do to feel good, but we could actually do in that other country to do good. And that's what I try and do in the podcast. We do a lot of good, Rotarians. We do a lot of good, but are we doing a lot of good? It needs to feel good, but it also needs to do good. And now my little Rotary club here on Whidbey Island has now a factory in Malawi. There are 22 women that make these kits. We bought their sewing machines. They now make up to 64 hygiene kits that they are now sending to other countries and other villages all over that area. So instead of sending 25 hygiene packages, we did better and we made a whole village, we made a whole solution. And that comes from learning the different cultural things, getting all the way back to the beginning of learning about your left hand as your right hand. It's finding out what the people need in that area, not what we feel better doing. And that's one thing we really try about on the podcast. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that addresses an important, question about the role of respect in service organizations. Do you learn to listen as much as you learn you want to help, right? And that makes a lot of sense. There's a couple of questions that are in about your podcast specifically, including asking about the link. Is it the Buzzsprout link?
It is the Buzzsprout link, or you can get it where. So if you go to Apple, if you go to iTunes, if you go to TuneIn Radio, if you go to God, they're all flooding into me. Anywhere you get a podcast, if you put in iHeartRadio, any of those, if you put in I'm a Rotarian, it's a little microphone. It's a blue tag with a little microphone. And it is I'm a Rotarian. So I am a Rotarian. Not all one word, because I had one poor lady who was like, it was like a conversation where press any key, she was not. So I do not have a website up yet. It is almost done. It's getting its bells and whistles on. I'm flying the plane while I'm building it, because it was the whole experience has been a little bit more successful than I was quite ready for. I kind of thought after COVID, I'd kind of drift away into the sunset, like a lot of podcasts have, and that didn't happen. So we can find it that way.
Well, speaking of success in a podcast, another question related to that is how do you measure success for a podcast? What, on the one hand, simply producing it allows you to tell a story, which is valuable to you. But there are metrics, and how do you think about those metrics, and how does it kind of shape the conversations you have with Rotarians of all descriptions about the nature of the stories you share?
That's a really good question. In other words, and being from a professional radio background where we sold advertisement, I've also been asked by people, why don't you monetize it? Maybe, and that might come in the future, only because the bandwidth is having to get bigger and bigger. For all my Silicon Valley people, this. My audience is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, so therefore I'm needing more and more and more and more power. So I am blessed to have other forms of financial freedom in my life. So I guess I have that luxury. And I also, what is success? I know that's a whole bottle of wine philosophical conversation, I guess. What is success is I have an audience of 9 folks in front of me that are interested in finding out about other Rotarians all over the world. That's a huge success. They are a group of Rotarians from all over the world. That's a huge success. I've had non-Rotarians that have heard the podcast saying, well, is there a way for me to find a local Rotary group in my area? That's success. The idea that I have made such dear friends that are saying, oh my gosh, if you're here, if you're in this country, if you're in this, you are welcome at my home anytime. that's success. I could throw numbers, thousands of downloads, and, I can show you the little arrow that keeps going up and all that kind of stuff. I mean, if I was a business person, I guess that's a success. If I'm a Rotarian though, which I am, I judge my success on the really inclusion part of diversity, equity, and inclusion, to say that it's time for all of us in Rotary to include one another, no matter who we are or where we are. The name of our group is Rotary International, not Rotary just down the street, or Rotary this state only, or Rotary North America only. We're Rotary International, and my success is that I help that international part every single week, and it's super exciting to me. I get a kick out of it. I just love it. So that's my success. I guess that might be a more selfish success, but
let's keep building on the question. I think Christopher has a question. So Christopher, go ahead and unmute and toss in.
And I just, the numbers, I had a question, but I wanted to make a quick comment about the success you just said. Yesterday, I saw Rotarian Salim Ahmad Khan, well-known Rotarian, had a baby in his arms. And most of the images I see, he's doing Rotary work, whether it's polio, New York, he's well-traveled man. But I saw an initial image of him that I'd never seen before in 10 years on social media, with a baby in his arm, with a man in a white robe, with a ring, some kind of a ceremony, and he was sliding it on the child's finger. And I felt, to me, that was a success in terms of the way we can change how we profess our Rotarianism in service with a humanness that works with children. And that was my comment. So when I saw that image, the first thing I thought was, wow, that's a heart image of service within his family. We do a lot of service internationally, but to show who we are humanly as people within our own context, it just touched me that way. And I attribute that to you. So God bless.
Thank you, Christopher. That's very kind of you. I think, and Christopher's comments, of course, are very sweet. He is the president of my fan club. But no, but I do have to say that I think, especially over the last 2.5 years, and I know Cecilia, you've really felt it being in Italy, that we were literally told to seal up and do not communicate and do not be thy brother's keeper, or even, to thy own self be true. How many things can I paraphrase? But, and the ones, and I think it's affected us. It's affected us physically, mentally, spiritually, lovingly, humanitarianly. And I have gotten people saying, thank you for letting me know there's other people out there. That's success. That's success to me, that somebody can be in Iowa and sit there and go, oh my God, I had no idea this was going on with my family of Rotarians, with my other Rotarians here, because we were told to just stop. The whole idea of what happened in the first few days in the Ukraine, how Rotary came together and gave all that money and has done that service. That was a Rotaractor who was running for her life out of her home, that got on social media and to other Rotaractor friends and Rotary friends and says, my family and I are running for our lives. We're headed here and here and here. How can Rotary help us? From that beginning came the worldwide Ukrainian relief movement that Rotary was a part of. That's cool. That's super cool. And that was just a Rotaractor literally running for her life that started that. But you may not know that intimate part of that story if you lived somewhere else outside of that affected region. but we brought that to the podcast. And that Rotaractor is actually coming on the podcast to tell her story of literally things zipping over her head. And she is texting other Rotaractors and finding out where they are. That's some super cool stuff. Yeah. Wow.
Powerful story. One more question for you before we wind down the recording, although for all of you who are watching this this particular recording, just know those of us on the recording, we get to keep talking to her after we stop the recording.
I have an interact meeting though, so you know, you can't talk to me all day, and I'll have to fill my coffee mug again like Cecilia if I have to.
Fair enough. So in looking at what a podcast can be for telling the stories of Rotary, which is actually in my mind not wildly different from what we do as an asynchronous online Rotary club, sharing stories of people doing good and innovative and sustainable stuff around the world, you know, through our programs. This is the kind of thing that may well run just different enough from what Rotary has done over time to cause some concern for some folks. That's always part of it. Fair enough. But also perhaps allow people who really needed a different avenue for connecting with Rotary to find that avenue, to hear in the stories that they are a part of the community in ways that maybe they hadn't before. In your work over the years that you've done the podcast, have people come to you with that message that they're hearing something about Rotary that they needed to hear? I feel that builds off your last answer, but what, you know, how does that work for you?
Well, I'll say, and I'll even double back a little bit farther to talk about success. I'm here to tell you today that there are 2 podcasts from Rotary International now. One by John Hannes, who talks about the simple principles of Rotary and how to start a Rotary group. And then Rotary Magazine does a cover story now every single week. And so going back to success, that's kind of a success to me. It's like, what's the old expression that copying is the highest form of flattery? And I've been in touch with both of them, and I was called by John Hannes, said, oh, no, we're not going to touch yours. You're kind of like our Oprah of Rotary. And that would be great. I'll take just one day of her salary, but that's okay. That being said, though, have people come to me and said, you know, things have changed their lives? Yeah, they have. And I've gotten some beautiful fan mail that has kind of set me back a little bit. I say that I started this because I wanted to know Rotarians. From a very kind of selfish standpoint, I wanted to know my Rotary family. I'm stuck on my house in a little island in the middle of the Puget Sound for the next 2.5 years. I want to know my Rotary family. And in my journey of learning more about Rotarians have gotten to learn more about themselves as well. And I take that as a huge honor. And the good, the bad, the ugly. I mean, we talk about racism. Like I said, we talked about God. I'm interviewing a gentleman today that is running for political office in Montana. And he can't go to his Rotary club at all and say, vote for me. You know, he can't, much like the whole, you know, what if your life is a politician? I think it's very interesting to know that both Hillary Clinton and Lindsey Graham are both Rotarians. You know, so we're a very diverse bunch of people. And so some of these fan mails of people going, I never thought of it that way. Or I had no idea we had, you know, a secret society of, well, I'll just tell you this. I had a woman of Jewish ancestry wrote me an email after she found out of one of our podcasts that the resistance fighters in Poland used to use our Rotary pins as a safety marker. And if you had a lapel, like a jacket like Roy has on, right? And they would put their Rotary pins under the lapel and flip it up like this. And that is the way the people would know that they were safe to talk to. That's cool. And so this woman sent me this letter saying, my mother was from Poland. And my grandmother used to talk about those people with the golden pins, the golden tickets. And so I'm sitting there reading this letter, crying, and my partner's like, are you okay? And I'm like, we can't read this. You know, this is like the coolest thing ever. So yeah, I'm a Rotary geek, and I want to take you all along the journey to be geekier about Rotary. We're really cool, you guys. Rotary is really cool. Another fact, the Taliban has stopped fighting to let Rotarians go in, and only Rotarians, to go in and put drops in mouths. Only Rotarians. The Taliban, and then the Taliban escorted those people through so nobody would hurt them. You had a story of a gentleman that did drops in the Congo. And for one day, all weapons were put down so their children could come forward and get drops. That's us. That's what we do. That's what we do. That's Rotary. So I get letters about those stories because people hear those stories and it's changed their lives. It's given them some pride. You know, I mean, I see Lisa with her polio shirt on. Rocket girl. Love it. 'Tis the month. You know, I'm proud. I wear my geeky Rotary stuff all the time. Not just my pin that's like this big, and if you hold it this way, it can get covered up. No. I wear Rotary t-shirts. I have a Rotary hat because I'm really proud of it. And when I get letters of people going, oh my God, I never thought Rotary was so cool. Then I sit there and go, well, 7 seasons, check them out. We're very cool people. We are very cool people, and we don't brag enough. So in conclusion, why do I do the podcast? What's the best thing about the podcast? Is that we're super cool, and it's honestly a place for the first time ever we get to brag about how cool we are.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Matter of fact, that relationship between cool and humility works. Roy just said, hey, got to go feed my cat.
Yeah, exactly.
So
that's okay. I get that.
For anyone watching the recording and is wondering about the drops in mouths, the polio campaign that Rotary has been on for closing on 4 decades,
yes,
to eradicate one of the nastiest diseases on the planet so that people will never have to experience that, is inspiring. It is absolutely inspiring. It's one of the reasons that I'm a proud Rotarian, for sure. So if you're curious about that, contact us and we'll get you more info because it's cool. So we will wind things down, and then I will hand back to Gwen for a final comment. And so all of you who have been watching this, let us know you are here. If you are watching this video on our meeting page, our Rotary.cool, our Silicon Valley Rotary.com meeting page, and you go a little farther down, you're going to see an attendance form. So you type in your name and successfully type in your email address, and that will generate a note that you can pass along to your club secretary for a missed meeting. And it also just kind of helps us understand our reach, which is cool as well. Even farther down the page, you will find the Discuss forum. This is your opportunity to let us know what you think of the content of the program, of the rest of the meeting, anything that you've got to say, hey, this inspired me, or I have a question about this, or does this work this way? Feel free to leave a note there. You are very welcome to engage, reply to other people who've put things in there as well. And we welcome your sharing your thoughts. So with that, Gwen, we always hand it back to the speaker for the final word. And so I will do that with you now. And thank you again for being part of our community.
It was an honor. Thank you so much. My final words, and I feel like I've said so much and gone around the world and back again, and follow me along as it, you're cool. you're cool. And you're so cool that places like the Gates Foundation and Global Citizen are wanting relationships with us because we do the work. And we do it not because we have to, but because we want to. And it's not a cliche thing to say that Rotarians make the world a better place. And especially all over the world right now, when you can go outside and things can seem scary, if you can take a moment and breathe in deep and know that you have another 1,000,004 people out there that want the absolute best for you, then being a Rotarian and being a part of this world is not such a scary thing. It's actually a fabulous combination. If anyone wants to talk more or has a suggestion for the podcast, it is rotarianpod@gmail.com. And both there's a couple faces on the screen right now that, please get in touch with me. Please tell me your story. My goal is 104 million interviews. It really is, because every single time I take my headphones off and push that microphone away, I know I'm a better person because I know another Rotarian. And I would love that. I'd love that feeling for everybody else, without a doubt. And I thank you for letting me join you this morning.
Beautiful, Gwen. Thank you. And for everyone, we will see you.
Yeah.